Hello and welcome back to my channel. I decided to make hamburger noodle casserole for dinner tonight, and because it's a fairly new to us recipe and I've never made it before for a video, I decided to film it. I had a busy afternoon ahead of me, and so I decided to get the spices measured out ahead of time so that putting the casserole together would be fairly fast and easy. So to this dish, I added 1 teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of pepper, and now I am doing 1 teaspoon, what I thought was 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. But actually I had used the half teaspoon measure, so I went back and put another half teaspoon of each into the dish. The recipe also calls for 2 teaspoons of minced garlic or granulated garlic on top of the 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And when I made it before that way, that was just too much garlic for me. I prefer just the 1 teaspoon of garlic powder in it. But if you like heavy garlic, go ahead and put 2 teaspoons of minced garlic in as well. I've watched cooking shows where the chef will say there's not such a thing as too much garlic, but I'm one of the few people who disagrees with that. I also added a half teaspoon of chili powder, and that's it for the dry seasonings. The recipe calls for a pound of lean ground beef, and so I put that in my Dutch oven to start browning. And while that was happening, I went ahead and I opened up a small can, an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, and a can of petite diced tomatoes. I put the 2 cups of water into a measuring cup, and I used very hot water because instead of bouillon cubes, I am using 2 teaspoons of better than bouillon beef base. And this is off subject, but I just wanted to mention that if you don't have a Dutch oven, a large frying pan will be just as good. And so I don't forget it, I am just going to add the Worcestershire sauce to that, and that's 1 tablespoon. And I had to go back and check the recipe to make sure I wasn't putting too much in, but it calls for a tablespoon. And then I'm just measuring out 2 cups of penne noodles, just so that I've got it all ready to go. And that's half of a 1-pound box. I had some diced onion left over from dinner prep a couple of nights before, and so that goes in to the pot with the ground beef, and I continue to let that cook until the onion is translucent. When the ground beef was all cooked, I went ahead, you can either drain it or sop up the grease with paper towels, and that's what I did. I just put some paper toweling in there and used my tongs to move it around, and it did a pretty decent job of getting all of the grease out of the pot. If I don't do it this way, then I pour the ground beef into a colander and let it drain into another bowl, and then I take that out and rinse it with hot water in the sink. I had a little bit more beef than we needed for this recipe cooked up, so I'm going to just put it in another container, and we'll use that for something else later in the week. Now I've got those spices that I measured earlier in the afternoon, and I am just gonna pour those on top and get those mixed in. And once they hit the heat, it just smells great. In goes the bouillon, water, and Worcestershire sauce. Then the tomatoes and tomato sauce. Now the recipe calls for tomato paste, but I don't usually keep that on hand. And so the last time I made this, I used tomato sauce, and I liked it. So you can use a half a can of tomato paste if you have that, or you can use a small 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. I think it just makes the sauce a little bit soupier and juicier, but I like it that way. And I have no complaints from my family, so I'm going to keep on doing it that way. Next, the noodles go in, and then I am just going to let them cook for however long it takes to have them cook. I think it was 10 minutes. So if you're thinking to yourself that this looks exactly like one of the hamburger kit meals that you can buy, you'd be absolutely right. I haven't had one in decades, so I don't know if the taste is similar or not, but so this works out to be a great weeknight meal. If you're a working mom or working dad and you need to get dinner on the table, you can get things measured out ahead of time like I did. Maybe do it the night before when you walk through the door, or right after you walk through the door, get your ground beef cooking, go change, come back, add everything else, and then boom, you've got dinner made. So now the noodles are cooked. You could eat it just like that, but I added some sour cream and a little bit of milk to the sauce. The recipe calls for 1 cup of sour cream and a 1/4 cup of milk. I just eyeballed it and mixed it up well. And then now I am just adding some, it's a Colby Jack blend of shredded cheese on top of it. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups of mozzarella shredded and 1.5 cups of cheddar shredded. I just used the pre-shredded stuff and then put the lid on it, take it off of the heat, put it to the side of my stove, and that hot Dutch oven will melt the cheese. And I just prepared a quick salad. It has avocados and tomatoes and croutons and purple onion, and I just dressed it with some dressing. And that's going to be our side dish for this meal. I'm just serving it up into a dish. It's very hot when you cook it in the Dutch oven, but I like the fact that it's just a 1-pot meal. I just have 1 pot to clean up after. And the measuring cups and spoons that I've used, those will all go in the dishwasher along with the dishes when we're done. So yeah, I know this doesn't get an A+ in visuals, especially being recorded on a camera phone, but this makes up for it in taste and flavor, and just a good meal that your family will love. So thank you so much for watching. Click the like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.